The Baltimore Ravens have been one of the most successful NFL franchises over the past 25 years, and it has largely been due to their success through the NFL Draft. They have won 2 Super Bowls this century by acquiring players like Jonathan Ogden, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and Terrell Suggs, all through the NFL Draft. The next generation or current generation includes key players like Lamar Jackson, Marlon Humphrey, Ronnie Stanley, and really the list goes on. They've had one season under 500 in the past 13 years, and it is because they consistently have good drafts and consistently field good teams on game day. In today's video, we're going to be discussing a pick-by-pick guide for the Ravens in the 2021 draft, as we have done this for several teams now, and they are no different. We're going to discuss players they should target, positions they should target, and their priorities for each and every pick that they have. Now, before we get started, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as each only take a second to do, and it would be very much appreciated. Now let's begin. When looking at the Ravens roster and the success they've had over the past few years, you'd immediately think there's not a lot of holes on this roster, and for the most part, you'd be right. They went 26-7 combined over the past 2 years in the regular season, and have went 30-7 since Lamar became the full-time starter midway through the 2018 season. But in each of the last 3 Ravens postseason losses, one to the Chargers at home, one to the Titans at home, and one in Buffalo, one thing was common in all of these losses, and especially the last 2. In the games against the Titans and Bills, the Ravens put up a combined 15 points, despite being a good offense all season that virtually had no problems moving the football, and that was especially the case in 2019. The problem for the Ravens was the receivers, or lack of. This is a textbook example of a team that's not built to come from behind because they don't have great receivers, and that is without a doubt one of the biggest needs they have entering the 2021 draft. Now, I am aware of the Sami Watkins signing, but Sami is not going to change them single-handedly, from putting up a mere 3 points in a playoff loss to Buffalo to beating Tampa or whoever represents the NFC in a shootout in Super Bowl 56. He is not that difference. Not only is he not that monumental of a difference maker, but he is under just a 1-year contract, and there's a good chance he's not on the Ravens roster past the 2021 season, depending on how he performs in other contracts the Ravens will soon have to pay. So anyways, getting to the player they should target at pick 27 in the first round, and if you are a fan of my channel, which by the way, if you are, I appreciate that a lot, then you know how much I love this fit, as it would be like a glove from the college to the NFL, and that is Rashad Bateman, a receiver from the University of Minnesota. The term build your receiver room like a basketball team has been popularized over the past few years, and Rashad would essentially be the power forward of the room if he is indeed the pick. There has been a bunch of tweets and drama surrounding his height and questions about how tall he really is and everything of this nature, because a lot of the times kids in high school lie an inch or two up to draw more interest from college recruiters, and Rashad was measured at 6 foot and 3/8 inch and 190 at his pro day, and I do not think that is a cause for concern based on how he plays. The cause for concern was people thought he was 6'2 or 6'3, and come to find out he is 6 foot and 3/8 inch. Anyway, he plays a lot bigger than that and plays above the rim, and should be a good safety net for Lamar Jackson to throw to when he's under pressure. If Rashad gets past the Bears at pick 20, and there is a good chance he does, he could fall into the Ravens' laps at 27 and be what would essentially the next Anquan Boldin for them. This is my favorite fit in the entire draft from a prospect to an NFL team, and I certainly hope it happens in a few short weeks. Now, just because I love the pairing of Rashad Bateman to Baltimore does not mean they are solely locked into taking him, and that is the only possibility of a selection they could have, because that is certainly not the case. They lost 2 pass rushers this offseason in Matt Judon and Yannick Ngakoue, as Judon went to the Patriots and Yannick went to the Raiders. Pass rush is certainly a huge need for this team, and it's a matter of when they address this position in the draft, not if. So I do think it is fair to say pass rush and wide receivers are the 2 biggest needs for this team entering the draft, and it is a matter of how they prioritize each and who is available when they pick. It is worth noting that the receiving class is more loaded than the pass rush class, and the players from the receiving class are better at their respective position than the pass rushers. There are players like Kwity Paye, Jalen Phillips, and Jason Oweh, but there are receivers like Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Kyle Pitts' offensive weapon if you will, and Jalen Waddle. Given how far back Baltimore is selecting, they won't have a chance at any of those receivers, but they will have a shot at drafting, or more than likely at least, one of those pass rushers. There is a very real possibility Kwity and Jalen are both gone by then, and rightfully so, as they are legitimate first-round prospects and great first-round prospects, but Jason Oweh, Azeez Ojulari, and Carlos Basham Jr. from Wake Forest will all more than likely be there. The Ravens could go pass rush here as long as they aren't reaching huge for a prospect, and I would not blame them in the slightest. As we saw from the Super Bowl, defense and ultimately pass rush wins championships. Whichever route the Ravens choose to go, whether it is receiver in the first and pass rush in the second or flip-flopped, I did want to put it out there that they are not solely locked in on Rashad Bateman as their number one guy. If by some miracle Jalen Phillips is still there when they select at 27, even if Rashad Bateman is there, then they have to sprint to the podium and get a pass rusher that they'll have for the next decade. Now, the Ravens have draft picks in every round but the 7th and have 2 5th-round selections, so they go into the draft with a total of 7 picks, which is a number I do expect to change. GM Eric DeCosta is always active during draft weekend pertaining to the trading market, and that is not something I would expect to change. Something I have not mentioned yet that the Ravens will certainly address at some point is the offensive line. They had Hall of Fame, or borderline Hall of Fame guard Marshall Yonder retire prior to the 2020 season, and there were certainly times where it showed as to how much of an impact he made on this team. Another question that will need to be answered soon is, what is Orlando Brown's future? Is he going to be a Raven for the next 4 to 5 years, or are they trading him pre-draft to let him go somewhere and get paid like a left tackle, the way Orlando has said he wants to be paid? Very quietly, the Ravens will be very active over the next 3 weeks or so, and there's potential that this team looks, and I wouldn't say a lot different, but there could be a few starters they grab from this draft, and a lot of it would boil down to the said Orlando Brown trade or potential trade. He is entering the 4th and final year of his deal in 2021, and has made it clear he does not want to take a pay cut, and who could blame him? NFL players usually get one true chance to get the bag, and I do not blame Orlando Brown or any other player one bit for wanting to do so. Period. But, because of that potentially ending his career in Baltimore, the Ravens may go into this draft with 2 first-round picks and address both pass rush and the offensive line if Brown does in fact get traded. So the Ravens are in a weird situation as a franchise because it's not like they have this Super Bowl window of 2021 and that's it, because well, that's not the case. They've done a good job over the past 5 years of consistently getting and drafting good football players, and you see that with players like Mark Andrews, J.K. Dobbins, Marlon Humphrey, and Ronnie Stanley. This is a team that could win a Super Bowl in any of the next 4 or 5 years, and it wouldn't surprise me, whereas teams like the New England Patriots and the Chicago Bears are clearly in win-now mode. So having said that, the Ravens are in the ultimate driver's seat pertaining to a draft day game plan, because they can sit back and pretty much chill and let things come to them. If they love a prospect at pick 22, given they pick at pick 27, and want to go get that said player, they can one way or another. It's not like they're a team that has traded multiple first-round picks for a player like Khalil Mack or Jalen Ramsey, you get my point. Having said that, the Ravens a lot of the time, though not all the time, tend to go best player available, and a lot of the time, it works out for them. A year ago, they had linebacker Patrick Queen fall right into their laps after the Seahawks surprisingly took Jordan Brooks, and around later they had running back J.K. Dobbins fall into their laps, despite not necessarily needing a running back, having a few good ones on the roster already, or serviceable ones, in Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, and Justice Hill. By the way, that was a perfect place for a Lamar Jackson running back joke, but I didn't make the joke. Anyways, this is a team that has 3 main needs heading into the draft: receiver, pass rush, and offensive line. And what they do in round 1 will largely determine how the rest of their draft goes, meaning which position group they choose to attack. There could also be a player that starts to fall that we don't see coming, as that usually does happen every draft, and the Ravens could trade out to acquire more picks, and we saw them do that exactly in 2012 when they were choosing at pick 28, just one more later than they are now, and the Vikings went up and got a safety by the name of Harrison Smith, while the Ravens traded back and got the prospect they wanted all along in Alabama's Courtney Upshaw. So, with the 27th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, I fully expect the Ravens to go best player available between the positions of receiver, edge, and offensive line. So we mentioned earlier the Ravens have a 3rd round pick, and they do, but it is a compensatory pick as they traded their actual 3rd round to the Minnesota Vikings for the gamble on pass rusher Yannick Ngakoue. So they only have 2 top 100 picks, which isn't great, but as we know they do trade around and generally wheel and deal a good bit on draft weekend. And one position we haven't discussed yet that the Ravens could go is secondary to grab a safety or just in general a playmaker. They could address this, and the perfect player here would be Javon Holland from Oregon, and he'd be a great fit and terrific player for them in the 2nd round if he falls that far. Now, I haven't done a video on Javon or really any big content on him, but he is very good, and I don't see a way his play doesn't translate to the next level, and in Baltimore, he would absolutely thrive. The Ravens did address the receiver position in the 2020 draft and did so in the 3rd round by selecting Devin Duvernay, who produced a 20-catch, 200-yard rookie season. He wasn't bad, but as you can tell right away by those numbers, he wasn't Justin Jefferson or anybody else big either. So having said that, I do think they'll try and address receiver early in the 2021 draft. Obviously, this is all going to depend on how the board plays out, and we're going to be realistic, because I'm not saying, oh, well, Jamar Chase to 27 because of a failed drug test or whatever BS. No, not happening. But if I had to guess and put money on the order of positions they'll go in the draft, I would say receiver round 1, edge round 2, O-line round 3, and BPA or best player available, regardless of position after that. Again, it will depend on how the board plays out, because if Rashad is gone but Jalen Phillips is there, then the receiver going first pick for them obviously goes out the window. Baltimore is always on the move, and I cannot wait to see what they do this year to bring them that much closer to a Lombardi trophy. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.